Here we go. Welcome to Double Dribble Bucks. I am Seth. With me, as always, is my good friend Brett. How you doing tonight, Brett?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually pretty relieved because the season is actually like ending and we can kind of stop having to watch this terrible, terrible season that kind of just really, I know, got a lot of people angry. So it's finally coming to an end. The
Yeah,
pain
the
is almost
nightmare
over.
is almost over, and we can wake up to some good NBA playoffs. Well, actually, not as good as we want it to be because there's kind of a lot of injuries, and that's
Yeah.
that's kind of a talking point. Maybe we can kind of spend a minute on that. What do you think about that? There's a lot of big name injuries. A lot of these guys aren't going to make the 65 days, which means they can't be all pro. They can't be MVP in some of these cases, like Kate Cunningham. So yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I don't know if I have a real big problem with like the 62 game, 65, whatever.
65 right now.
Thanks, 65 game rule. I don't know. It's just like we grew up in an era where they were playing all the time. Like 65 games doesn't seem like a big deal. I mean, like if you get injured, like you get injured, like that should be part of it. But I really don't have a problem with it at all. There's too many guys that just rest for real no reason. They make way too much money, so they should rest. I mean, I can't blame them, but you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice something. But the injuries going into the playoffs really does suck because I really love the NBA playoffs. They're just so exciting. There's no series that's like boring. I shouldn't say that. I mean, every once in a while there is, but like a lot of times they're very competitive. So yeah, it really sucks because you don't want teams to win a championship just because other players are out. Like Detroit, it would have been interesting to see how far they could go. I don't know that Cunningham is out forever, but he was like dealing with something. Like who knows kind of what the outcome of that is. So it kind of just sucks to be looking forward to this final product. And I know it kind of goes the opposite of what I was saying with the 65 game rule because it potentially could guarantee some healthy players, but I mean, you can see right now it doesn't. There's too many injuries that are coming at the end of the season, and I don't know. That's my thought.
Yeah, so 65 games means they can miss 20% of the season. So that's like yeah, it's a decent amount. So like you have to play 80% essentially. So if they change that to 75%, I mean I guess I'd be okay with that. But I mean I like the premise that you have to play a certain amount of games. So where is that line? I don't think so 65, I don't think it's egregious. Anyone who's like so upset about it, I think, well, I don't know. You missed 18 plus games. So kind of a lot.
It is a lot.
But yeah, I'd be fine to change it. I think maybe they should. Although maybe they shouldn't, because I mean, at the same time, they're trying to get these guys to play, right? They're trying
Hmm.
to like not have you sit. That's kind of the whole point of this thing. And why is it that guys have to sit every once in a while for seemingly no reason or like a little minor injury when 30 years ago that just didn't seem to happen?
Hmm.
I guess I don't have the stats in front of me, but I feel like Jordan played almost every game, didn't he? I
Yeah,
mean, isn't
and
that one of the things?
I think it was like I know Jordan played a significant number of his games. I know John Stockton, I think, missed like 5 games in his career or something like insane. It's like I don't know. It's different. I hate to be like the guy that makes it seem like it's all about the money, but like the other guys were making good money, but it wasn't like insane. So they still had to try hard because they loved playing the game. Now you can be, the eighth man on you can be the 10th guy on the bench and be a millionaire. So it's like you don't really have to try that hard, unless you really have that competitive spirit, and that's when you see like a couple of these guys that really stand up, and maybe that's part of the problem with like fielding a team because in college you're a millionaire, you go to the NBA, like you really don't need to keep making money. So do whatever you want to do. And maybe that's why you get like a Ricky Williams who wants to smoke pot the rest of his life and give up his NFL career. Maybe they're just like, I just don't need that much.
I think Ricky Williams came up on our last podcast, or
I think
maybe
he did.
maybe a couple.
I think he
It's
did.
like, how is that happening?
I keep thinking about Ricky Williams' love podcast where I just talk about Ricky Williams.
Okay, so Michael Jordan. So he retired and then he came back and he played for the Wizards for only 2 seasons, actually. He only played 60 games his first season back, so he missed 22. How many games do you think he missed his last season when he was 39 years old?
I'm going to say it's probably crazy. I'm going to say under 10.
He missed 0 games. 82 games at the age 39, playing 37 minutes per game. Okay, this happened. 2002, 2003 season. Michael Jordan's the best player of all time, so maybe he's not the best example. But still, we're comparing him to like a LeBron James. I could look up his, but he's missing games here and there. He's actually plays a lot. He's not a guy who's missed a ton, but he definitely takes games off. One of those seasons, it felt like he took a vacation week. If you remember that, he needed to reset his mind or something. Yeah. That's not happening back, especially with Jordan.
No.
But yeah, he played 82 games. So the last 3 years that they won the championships, 82 games each of those years. He was hurt. 2 seasons he was hurt and he played 17 or 18 games. One season he played 78. Otherwise he played 80, 81, or 82. He basically played every game.
That's wild. It's just tonight we were showing the girls highlights of Dennis Rodman because, I'm trying to explain like each player on the court has kind of a different role and maybe they're just doing this or that. But, you look at the clips of Rodman and yeah, they played in the playoffs a ton and they're in the championship. But every game, I don't care who it was, it looked like he was playing for like the last time he might ever play. And it's something that you don't really see as much anymore. And I know really sounds like an old man rant of like, back in my day, but it's kind of true. Like they were playing harder and they played more. And now it's kind of just like, it's a softer league. They don't want to do as much, but I don't think they're going to change. It's just kind of the way you got to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's a mystery somewhat as to why are these guys getting all these injuries, a lot of these calf strains, a number of Achilles. And so that's, I'm sure they're running all their studies and trying to figure it out. But it's kind of it feels like a weird thing. I guess I don't know the actual stats of it as to like how many calf strains, per year compared to 20 years ago. But it is kind of annoying. We want guys to play, especially we want the best players when the playoffs come. So it does kind of suck that at the beginning of the playoffs, I think we're going to be missing, a few of like the star guy. Like Anthony Edwards, I think might be out. Wemby, I think he's going to be back, hopefully.
So.
And I think he just needs one more game in the regular season to make 65 games. So hopefully he gets that. All right, before we move on real quick on that, Wemby or SGA, pretty much the only two options, I think, for MVP. Who do you take?
I feel like I kind of got to give it to Wemby. He's just so unstoppable on both sides of the ball. It's just like amazing to watch. I don't know. I think that's just the way I lean. I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's just like it's the game that I'm most impressed with. And I shouldn't be. He's the biggest guy out there. Like he should be good, but I'm still impressed every time I watch him play.
Yeah, I'm most excited to watch Wemby in the playoffs because I haven't really watched him much. I've seen him play the Bucks a couple times and I've seen a couple of games here and there, but I haven't seen him enough. So my opinion probably doesn't count that much, but I would take SGA this year. Wemby's going to get like 5 MVPs. So I'm not sure if we should like let him sneak one in here. SGA's had a number of like game-winning shots, and when I've seen him play, he just takes over the game. He's really impressed me this season. Like I do have SGA as ahead of Giannis at this point in my overall top players. I'd say he's my number one, I think, actually. Him, Jokic, and Giannis, and maybe that could be a conversation we walk into here. Giannis has, before the season started, some other guys had Giannis further down the list, and we were kind of complaining about it somewhat because to us, Giannis was clearly above SGA at that point, and certainly like Luka. I think maybe someone had Anthony Edwards ahead of him, possibly. I don't know, but it's not like people had him at 10, but people had him below a couple of these guys that we wouldn't have. And I think they've maybe been proven right, or at least I'm maybe at this point I kind of agree with them. I think Giannis has taken a step down. I think a couple of the reasons is one thing we've talked about throughout the year is I don't think he's getting his teammates involved enough. He's not making his teammates better like you want to see. Now, of course, we're going to blame Doc Rivers for a lot of that, and there's other things going on here. But I do put some blame on him for that. You're not like, we were below 500 with Giannis on the court this season. Like, that's not top 2 player behavior, So yeah, I said 2 things. I can't think of the other thing. It'll come to me, but I'll let you go.
Yeah, I think I do give some blame to Giannis as well. It sucks because, I hate to go that route, but he was always in the media talking about, like, we need players that are less selfish with the ball. But it's like, well, when you're on there, like, maybe deservingly so, but you are easily the most selfish player out there because, you feel like you're the best, and yeah, you are the best, so you should. But I was always kind of surprised by that too, because, kind of to your point, it's like, you're not facilitating enough. I think one of the things that does make Jokic so interesting to watch is that he's not just doing one thing. And if he is doing one thing, it's like passing. Like, that's the thing that he kind of excels at more than anything, which is such a key thing, when you're looking at a player. It's like, you're either going to be so untouchable as a scorer that you can just take over the game all you want, or you have to be able to have, more tricks in the bag. And Jokic does that. He's great at facilitating the pass. Giannis has had that moment, but you've said before too, it's like, you would really like to see him averaging 10 assists a game versus the games where he's got 5 or 6, which just doesn't seem to fit right. Especially when everybody knows the game plan is Giannis is going to drive to the hoop, which he should because he can do it. And if he needs to throw it out to somebody, he will. But there's still so many times where I think he's taken some shots that I'm kind of surprised with. Now, that's easier said than done because there's also times where he makes ones where I was like, I don't even know how you did that. But, he really could get, I think, people more involved. And, it kind of goes a little bit into, we kind of touched on this with kind of what went wrong this year. It's kind of hard to say because I still think on paper the plan should have made a lot of sense. You had a lot of like young, talented guys that as long as there was some consistency, you could run that game plan and they could step up, and it just really fell apart. Didn't seem to click even once.
Yeah. And it's just, I think it was just the combination of not winning. It's like, if you're going to take it to the rim every time and kind of be, somewhat of a ball hog, ball dominant, which isn't always bad, but it is bad if you're 15-17 in the games you play or whatever the record was. It's like, because SGA, something, I'll see some games and he's not really doing much, and then he just takes over, like making, 20 points in a quarter after he gets like 2 in the first quarter or something. Yeah. And so I guess it's just, you have to win, you have to like lead your team to wins, or, if you're not doing that, then you need to get them more involved. I mean, ideally you're doing both and you make them better. But this year it was like a failure on both ends. You weren't getting your teammates involved enough. You weren't making them better. And we were losing. So like what you were doing wasn't working. And if you're that good of a player, like you're going to be better than 500. It's not like the Bucks have nobody on their team. It's not like they have all rookies who are all figuring out how to play. I mean, AJ, some of the guys are somewhat younger, but they've played a few years. Like AJ Green's, he knows what he's doing at this point. So there's just, there's not a good excuse. Like you just have to take responsibility at some point. And that's what I'm hoping he does this summer, is kind of take that responsibility and take that challenge. And I think we talked about it, I don't know, 1 or 2 episodes ago, about how that's like the ideal would be him kind of taking on the challenge. I mean, like, I want to take this like terrible team that we just had, terrible season, and turn it around and become a champion again with this team, rather than bail on the team and just be like, I'm just out. But if you're truly the best, like you can lead this team. You don't have to go like Kevin Durant and just get traded to the best team and win a championship. Like that doesn't fit. That doesn't seem like that fits Giannis, which is why I keep thinking he's going to stay, because it just fits how he talks about approaching challenges. Mm-hmm. Unless there's been kind of more personal failures, and he's offended personally, then those kinds of things maybe would lead him to leave. But yeah, anyway, kind of switching to the Giannis conversation, which we always have, because there's new information out, a lot of new reports from both local reports and national reports that say opposite things seemingly. Anyway, I still conclude that I think he's going to stay because I think he wants that challenge and that fits who he's been. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think something was going on this year that was off the court. Maybe it could have just been like, some personal issue that maybe wasn't as bad as it could have been. He could still play with it, but something just seemed off because, we were debating this the other day. One of the reasons I like Kobe Bryant, ahead of LeBron is the kind of the killer instinct that I think he always had that LeBron seems to kind of come and go with. And I think, kind of touching on what you said, Kobe Bryant was on some really bad Laker teams until he was able to put the team on his back and win it again. And it was like, he did that. Like, you look at that team and you weren't like, oh, Kobe also had, well, yeah, he had Pau Gasol, I think. And, Gasol was great still, but people remember that as Kobe's team with a bunch of guys, and I think that's the exact same thing that Giannis is trying to maybe do here. It's like, look, the easy thing to do would be to have come to Milwaukee, win a championship, and walk away and know that you'll be the most beloved Buck forever, no matter what you play, and just kind of ride off. He has every right to do that. But I don't think that he's the type of guy that's going to take the easy route. I think he's going to come back and, to your point, prove people wrong. Like, I am so good that I can take anybody, and we're going to figure this out, and we're going to get there.
Yeah. I do need to talk about the Sham story a little bit, how annoying it is, how we always talk about this. I don't know if who's out there has read the Sham story, but it was very negative towards the Bucks Giannis relationship, basically saying Giannis asked out in the summer. He asked out like 2 weeks into the season. He asked out before the trade deadline, and they've been at odds the whole time. That the executive said he would be traded, and then he wasn't. So it really painted this picture of he's trying to like push the Bucks to trade him, for the past year, and that he's like upset that it's not happening. But then you don't really get in his story. You don't really get many details. You never get quotes of Giannis or anyone close to Giannis, and you always get like anonymous sources, and it's just like, well, I don't know, and there's not really many quotes per se. It's more of just, I don't know, just kind of talk about the situation, like this happened. Then in the Sham story, you did get some kind of nuggets about the season, not really Giannis per se, but just like, because part of the theme of the story was like Bucks' disastrous season, understandably. And one example was Kuzma. If you remember that game, he was just benched, did not play a second in one of those games, and it was weird because he played, every game he played. And apparently there was a team meeting the day prior, and Kuzma basically told Rollins and KPJ to not listen to the coaches and just like be who they are, play their game. And the coaches were kind of pushing them to do it differently. And so the main thing was Kuzma told them not to listen to the coaches. Doc got wind of that and benched him. And it's like, well, that's interesting. Like that would have been a good story to come out at that time. But it kind of just painted a picture of what's going on during the season. But what's interesting is that wasn't Giannis. That had nothing to do with Giannis, And so like this disastrous season, seems like there's a lot more there than just Giannis. And they really painted it with this Giannis storyline, the fact that he wants out and that's affecting everybody. Not to say that there's not some truth to that, but there's more going on. And there's apparently players not listening to the coaches, not agreeing with what the coaches are saying throughout the season, which you'd think would it's not surprising that leads to losses. It's not winning basketball when the players and the coaches are at odds and it's just there's no continuity there. So what I found interesting, though, there's a lot there that has nothing to do with Giannis, but the whole, like the main point of the story was Giannis. Giannis wants out. Giannis wants out. Then you get the local story the same weekend from the Journal-Sentinel. It's an interview with Giannis, lots of quotes from Giannis himself, and it just doesn't it's like a different story. Yeah, I mean, and of course Giannis could be lying. He's not going to maybe share the whole truth. Maybe it's half truths. So it's not like, maybe stuff happened behind the scene and Giannis isn't going to tell us about it. That's fair enough, but it's still very different, very negative from Shams. And then Giannis is saying things like, I'd like to be here if it can work. I want to stay here, but kind of putting parameters on it, putting like, well, things need to be a certain way, but I do, in an ideal world, I'm in Milwaukee. I mean, that's essentially what he's saying. I forget the exact quotes, but he's basically saying, I want to make it work here. It's like, why would you say that if for a year you're trying to get out? Like, I don't think you're going to say that. It's just the two stories don't work. There's obviously tension. There's obviously issues here. The Bucks are in a tough spot. There was probably some trade talk. It's just, I do not believe Shams' story. And what really gets me is everyone latches onto that story as if it's gospel. And then the Journal Sentinel and the Eric Neem stories just totally get ignored. That's what I really don't understand, especially the Eric Neem stuff, because The Athletic is not really a local publication. It's based the New York Times, essentially. So, like, why is that's like a national publication, but it just, the only things that get talked about are the Shams and the ESPN stuff. And it just doesn't, I don't like that.
Well, ESPN is too big, so they're everywhere. And the problem is, we grew up watching ESPN because they showed clips of sports. Like, that's kind of what it was. Like, you didn't even have to deal with a lot of people talking. You had like your favorite anchor because you maybe saw them narrating, for 30 minutes, but you didn't actually see them like share an opinion. That's why ESPN was awesome. Now ESPN is so big that you could literally put it on and hear people arguing 24 hours a day, just literally on your TV going back and forth. And so they can put out anything they want and they can control the story. But you're right. I mean, it's like every time Shams writes an article, it's like he wrote it on ChatGPT and just said, like, write a story about turmoil without giving me any actual facts. And it's like, that's kind of what the stuff is. And it's, I still think we kind of touched on this a while ago, but as you were talking about this, I really wonder if there's something to the truth of we kind of floated out a conspiracy that when Adrian Griffin was here and got fired, that there maybe there was something to, like, Giannis didn't like him and they said, okay, you can have this firing, but we're going to get the next guy and we get to decide how long that guy gets to be here. And Giannis probably was in a position thinking, yeah, no problem. You're going to come get, maybe in that case, Kenny Atkinson, because that was the rumor that Horst liked him. And so maybe he agreed. He was like, okay, that's fine. Like, you're going to get me somebody good. Haslam comes in. They get Rivers. They sell him on, this is Doc Rivers, the top 10 most winning coach. He's got a championship. He's like, all right. Well, when that started to fall apart, Giannis was stuck. He really couldn't figure out what was happening here because for whatever reason, they just kept bringing Doc back. And it was like, maybe it was something that they're like, we're going to let him run out his whole contract. That's going to be the sacrifice you're going to give up. And maybe the turmoil stemmed from that frustration, which I think could make a lot of sense, where it's just like, look, I hope they work this out, meaning I'm going to have an opportunity to sign an extension here. It's either me or him. So I know you wanted to make this big stand about your coach and this whole thing, but now this is the time to see if we're going to make it work. And maybe this whole thing has just been contract talk the whole time. I know it sounds crazy, but there could be some truth to it at the same time.
Yeah, it definitely could. I mean, why they kept Doc Rivers all season is like, I guess, I don't know if we'll ever know that. I'm really curious to hear like the end of the season press conference with Horst and like what they have to say, because everyone was calling for Doc's job like 5+ times, right? We had like the worst loss of the season like 10 times. It's like, now you have to fire him. And then the trade deadline, they just traded for a young potential guy. They didn't kind of make any splash to, you'd think, like to make Giannis happy or, like that kind of a move. So it is odd that they kept him. And now that the talk about him retiring, as if it's kind of been like a plan, because they want to be respectful. I guess they like him too much, whatever the reason is. But it definitely seems like that's the plan at this point, that he's going to maybe not retire, or maybe go into an executive, cushy job where he's not doing much. I don't know if he gets paid the same amount or less, but too much. I don't know. It sounds like they've worked that out though, and they worked it out probably a while ago this season. But it's just interesting, like why, and why not? Why do that and not fire him if all this Giannis stuff is like a real thing? Because you'd think we got to do everything we can to win. And there was a point in December, January at the latest to be like, we can turn this around. Like, we need Doc Rivers out of here. We need a fresh, new authority to turn this around. And they didn't do that. And so that is perplexing. It's just hard. It's hard to understand like what happened there, because if it was all about winning, you'd think they would do that. Or they just really believe Doc. I mean, I guess he's got like this magic spell that he puts on people or something, because I mean, it had been a year and a half, 2 years. I guess January had been 2 years at that point of like Doc not succeeding, being below average, continually again and again with like obvious problems not being taken care of. We had this whole offseason talking about how the Bucks are going to play, and then they don't do it. It's like, well, what is going on here? So it's a season I can't explain. We need more information.
So I am waiting for like the tell-all book about like what's been going on, because there has to be something there. I agree. There's another conspiracy theory for you, but I think again this one has a little bit of legs. So when you go to Fiserv and you look up, you can see Doc Rivers' Marquette jersey hanging from the rafters. There's no way that he's going to take a job in the home of where his jersey is retired and get fired. He wants to be associated with, I gave it a shot, I coached here, I played here. I need to have a complete ending to my story. I'm going to again say, like, when he came in mid-season on all this turmoil, he never gave you the vibe of, we're going to turn this around. It was always like, I wouldn't even give this to my worst enemy. And there's a million excuses. And he had to have said something that said, okay, here's the deal. Like, you can't fire me for a certain amount of time, and then we can have a retirement end, but you don't have the right to fire me in the mid-season. That's the only way I'll take this job, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, like, at the time you make that deal, do you really think he's going to get this bad? No, you have to have some faith to be like, yeah, I'll sign this. No problem. I don't think either of us were very optimistic when Doc came on, but it wasn't like the dread that we feel today. So, I mean, at the time he was hired, it wasn't the weirdest thing to like think that he could maybe do something. So I don't know. That could be another reason. You can't go to a place where your jersey's retired and always be remembered as the guy that got fired. It just doesn't work. Yeah.
If Giannis leaves, then he'll be remembered by the guy that like destroyed the Bucks.
Exactly. So, that's true. 100%.
I don't think. If Giannis leaves, the retirement doesn't really save him. But
that's true. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Doc Rivers and the Bucks having this terrible season, what went wrong? And I think we each have our own list here of 5 biggest mistakes since winning the championship. How did we go from the best in the league to 10 games out from making the play-in 5 years later? So yeah, let's go. We'll take turns. We'll probably have some repeats, but hopefully not all 5 are the same. But yeah, why don't you go first?
All right. So my number 1 is kind of, all encompassing, but coaching. So you had Bud come up from Atlanta. He was able to take the Hawks to the Eastern Conference Finals, comes to Milwaukee, turns the team around pretty quickly. They're all of a sudden a serious contender. They had multiple chances to be the champion. Giannis is winning MVPs. Like, holy shit. Like, look at what he's done. But then there's the hangover, and I think the problem is like there's a shift in the mindset of people kind of recently feeling like I don't have to do everything like it used to be done. But what they did before they had that realization was they fired Bud when it just kind of was growing stale. He wasn't doing anything new. It was kind of the same thing. They weren't and you needed a refresh, right? Looking back, I probably wish I would have just kept him and see what happened, but it made sense at the time. It was totally the right move. I think we could agree with that. Well, then things start just completely falling apart. And this is kind of the all-encompassing, like, what has derailed the Bucks. This is chapter 1, in my opinion, because you fire the championship coach, you bring in a young, talked about assistant that, at the time people were like, what a great hire. This guy is like a defensive-minded coach that used to play. He's going to fit with the players that Bud has. And the guy is just kicked to the curb in the middle of the season. No explanation. Nobody wants to talk about it in the media and the Bucks. Like, it's just kind of like a non-story. Like, we all saw him coach and get fired. Why can't you tell us what happened? No, we're not going to tell you anything. So then all of a sudden they wheel out a retired Doc Rivers in the same way that, like, I get mad at ESPN for, you bring back Chris Berman to do 90 seconds of, like, football highlights. Like, the guy retired. Just let him just relax. Let Doc be like, why? I don't understand that. Nobody saw that coming. It made no sense. And all of a sudden, as soon as he starts to suck, they just dig their heels in and be like, no, this is the guy. So I think, the single issue that you look back on, and there's a lot of, like, pieces around it, but the mistakes around coaching have got to be number one, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, one of mine was hiring Doc Rivers. Basically similar to that. I think firing Bud was the correct move. And I think that was somewhat proven correct with him coming back to the Suns and failing.
Yes.
And I think the game changed and he didn't adjust to it. And I think the Bucks, maybe his last season on the Bucks maybe was the beginning of that. Although I think a lot was just the continuation of Bud problems that we had even before winning the championship. I mean, at least I wanted to fire him before he won.
Yes.
Which I guess was wrong because he won a championship. It's like the team was great. I mean, it certainly would have been better just to keep him. Obviously, looking back, I guess if you'd rather have him for 5 more years or what we just did, I'd rather have him. But it does seem like he is not the best coach right anymore. So I think that was fine. I think that was the right move. And they went to Adrian Griffin, who honestly maybe would have been fine. Maybe he needed more time. Apparently the players revolted and gave up on him. But honestly, it seems like that happened with Doc Rivers and they didn't fire him. So, they weren't forced to fire Adrian Griffin. So maybe they should have just let him finish the season and try and, regain the team's trust. It was understandable, though, to fire him. I don't even blame them for doing it. Like, we were a championship contender legitimately at that time, and we didn't have time to waste. It's not like, hey, let's just see how it happened. Like, we needed to be like, this needs to work. Which is why I had hiring Doc Rivers specifically as the problem, because that was just such a miss. It was worse than Adrian Griffin, because Griffin was learning on the job. Like, he was going to ideally improve, and he was 30-13. It's not like he was terrible. I mean, there were things weren't working in the locker room, but it was resulting in wins, so it wasn't all bad. And you hired Doc Rivers, and he was like 500, I think just under 500 the rest of that season. You go from 30-13 and then it's like just 500 ball under Doc Rivers. That's not good. And then the next year it was like a little bit better. And then obviously this year was just awful. And just sticking to your point, coaching in general, just like sticking with him, this long is obviously another problem. But so yeah, totally agree with that, with the emphasis on Doc Rivers, which we've talked enough about perhaps this episode. So all right, I'll give you one of mine. Mine starts right after winning the championship. The Bucks decided not to re-sign PJ Tucker. And I think that was a big mistake. At the time, we didn't like it. Most Bucks fans didn't like it because he was beloved, awesome, midseason trade, win the championship. He was vital to that team. And he wasn't going to cost a crazy amount. I know that the Bucks were, luxury tax, second apron, whatever, all the stuff. And that, I think, was a big reason as to why they didn't sign him. But they probably could have figured something else out. And they just didn't prioritize PJ Tucker as a member of this team, as a championship team. And so I think that was a big mistake. But I'd say one of the 5 biggest mistakes is just letting him walk. He signed with Miami, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Miami.
Yeah, and it's just like, especially after he signed, it was like, we could have done that. Like, why didn't we do that? I forgot who we got like instead of him, but it didn't work, whoever that was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also on my list as well. It was, I mean, you covered everything very well, but it was also like, he just was that heart that the team needed. I mean, you even had it at the championship parade, just talking about this team and like getting everyone excited. It's like, you need a guy like that. And I know I've said it before, but like, if you don't have somebody that's like getting this team motivated to play, like, it doesn't matter. You watch sports and there's always somebody that says like, I'm so inspired I could run through a wall for the guy. It's like, that's the type of people you need, that you're just like, yeah, you know what, we can do this, and we can. And it sounds so like kind of cheesy to say, but that's what you need. If you have somebody that's like, you know what, I don't even know why we're going out there, we're probably going to get our ass kicked. It's like, all right, well, yeah, we probably will. So, all right, let's do that.
And we haven't had a guy like him. And maybe the closest guy we've had to him is Patrick Beverley. But the problem there is that Patrick Beverley was like 35 minutes a game, big. I mean, I wouldn't have played him that much, but the way that Doc Rivers played him was like, he's the main guy. He's playing all the time. Mm-hmm. He's not like the 5th guy. PJ Tucker was like the 5th guy.
Yeah.
But he was the dog, and he was super important. And Patrick Beverley had some of that dog in him, but we need that, like, just on the not as like the main guy who's handling the ball all the time and doing everything. And so I think that's the difference between that. Other than those two guys, like, that's one of the things we've been missing. We don't have like that dog guy.
Yeah, and I mean, the players that we've had on the team, Giannis seems to be pretty laid back and quiet at times. I mean, obviously you watch him play and he gets fired up, but like his interviews and stuff. But like Brook Lopez is kind of like that. Chris Middleton is like that. These guys aren't very big vocal guys, and sometimes you need somebody that just kind of fires them up, and that's really been lacking, and it's pretty obvious. And I think the thing that bothers fans so much is like, it's pretty clear. Like you said, Patrick Beverley came in and everyone saw that spark, and it was just like, oh wow, this is great. It wasn't really working the way you wanted it to, but it was like, all right, like clearly this is how you get some energy, and you just don't address it. And I know that maybe it's not so easy to find the energy guys out there, but sometimes it is. And when you have them, just sign them. I don't know. It's kind of a waste. So the other one that I'm going to have is maybe an interesting one. Trading for Damian Lillard. And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
So I think we've all agreed that going back, we would have done that trade every single time. You go for Damian Lillard. And the trade is not a problem with Damian Lillard. And the trade is not a problem with losing Drew Holiday. The moment we traded for Damian Lillard, we changed identities of the team. We became successful as a defensive-minded team. Giannis is in Defensive Player of the Year conversations, won it. That's what we were doing. Adrian Griffin comes in, and the team starts to be more offensive-focused. And maybe that was something that really got the players off. So you bring in Doc, who's supposed to be the defensive guy. I think that's what he's supposed to be known for. And we just never recovered. It doesn't seem like the roster is built for that. It doesn't seem like the coaches are going for that. And so while it's not any of the players actually involved, that was the moment the identity of the team changed and things started to fall apart. Brook Lopez, the last year, he was still a top defensive player, but we were getting so annoyed because he was always out, shooting threes or playing out of position, and he was too slow to do that. And it's not really his fault. It's like, if he would have played kind of the way he did as a defensive first guy with this deep shot, like, that could have been more successful. And then it just completely changed. So looking back, I think that trade with the identity is going to be my next one.
Yeah, I love that, because you're right that we never recovered. Like, the identity certainly changed, and we, I think, all accepted that as being like, that's part of what you're doing here, is you're going to just dominate on offense. And I mean, you're giving up Drew Holiday too. It's like, I mean, so it's kind of clearly you're going to be like worse on defense and better on offense. And so the identity is changing there. But to your point, that we never recovered, even after, like, we never were able to kind of get a defensive identity with Damian Lillard. And then once he's gone, we weren't able to kind of go back to it. And it's kind of like you said, some of the personnel is the issue, and Doc Rivers is definitely part of the issue. And they've talked about it. They certainly talked about having defense be the priority, be a defensive-minded team. It's just I'm not seeing it on the court. We haven't seen it in the stats. It's actually just gotten worse and worse. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, and interesting that we've never recovered, even come close to recover, especially after losing Dame. You'd think we'd kind of get back to it, but it has not happened.
No.
Well, I'll piggyback on that one. I had waiving Damian Lillard as one of the 5 biggest mistakes. So, I mean, trading for him, you lose some picks, obviously. So you could kind of blame that as part of it, even though the trade does make sense to pretty much everyone agreed with the trade. It's like at the time, I don't know of anyone that didn't like the trade. So it's hard to say like that was a bad trade. I don't think anyone should really say that. But when you get to the point of waiving him, you've now completely like just threw away your second most valuable asset, which was almost as valuable as your most valuable asset. Okay. And you just like threw it in the garbage and got nothing for it. So it's like you gave up so much to get this guy. And then, I mean, tragically he gets hurt. Sucks for him too, but sucks for everybody. Like he's, serious injury at 36 years old. And you just waive him. And it's like, if you kept him and he's coming back next year, we could trade him right now. Probably not nearly what we got for him, but you could trade him and get something for him, or you could stay on the team. He could be on the team, and we would not be having $20 million just in the garbage for 5 years. It's just really, really shackles the Bucks with what they can do as they're trying to keep Giannis and be competitive, like in his early 30s. That's why it's so difficult and so understandable for Giannis to leave, because like, what can we do for him? Like there's not that much that you can do. And I mean, we've talked about it. We're getting to a point next season. We have 3 picks we could trade. Like we still can do stuff, but it's so difficult. And it's just like, if you do that, now you have nothing again for years. And so waiving him, any assets that you could gather are gone. Either you have Damian Lillard or you have some assets for trading him, and now you have like neither of those things, and you're negative $20 million to start the payroll every single season. And so it's just, that only made sense if you were competing for a championship this year, and we're obviously nowhere close to that. And so that's why it's such a failure and such a mistake to waive him in hindsight, because we had talked about, hey, it's kind of a fun season. Like, let's get some young guys, play young guys, have Giannis be the point Giannis, and just kind of see what happens. Like, we didn't think we'd be terrible. Kind of like, honestly, the Celtics. A lot of people thought the Celtics were just going to take an off year, just do, they actually acted like that. I mean, to start the season, like some of the moves that they made seemed like, oh, they're not really trying to win. Like, Queta, what's the guy, the center that they got?
Yeah.
Ended up being pretty good, but it's like, did anyone expect that? Obviously no Tatum all season, so you're just thinking they're not going to be as good. And here they are. They're like basically the favorites out of the East right now, especially because Tatum's back at the end of the season now. And so the Bucks, it's like that could be the Bucks. You know what I mean? It should be like that. That just shows the difference of where the franchises are of the Celtics and the Bucks. There's no reason that the Bucks couldn't have done what the Celtics just did. There's no reason. So it's a lack of, whether it's personnel, whether it's coaching, whether it's a combination of the two, whether it's a lack of leadership from Giannis and like what he could do, and why we're talking about how he's not, top 3 anymore. That's really upsetting, and that just kind of compounds the mistake of waiving Damian Lillard.
I don't know if I can even add anything. I think you nailed it. I think you're 100% right. But the one thing I kind of got from that is, maybe John Horst is a bad GM. I mean, I think we talk about how good he is, but if you start thinking about some of these things, like,
Yeah.
there's a really stupid move looking back, like you said, the way that Boston is. We traded Chris Middleton, which at the time everyone was like, okay, good call. You got to shed that money. He's not playing as well. Well, then he goes to Washington and looks pretty awesome. And then he goes to Dallas and looks pretty awesome. So that looks terrible. Looks like a very stupid decision. In that same Middleton trade, we traded AJ Johnson, who was a guy that nobody thought should have been drafted in the first round, yet Horst takes him. He gets traded to Washington and does one of the classic Buck things that we've talked about before. Within the first 2-3 weeks on the team, he has one game that he looks awesome. And you're like, oh man, like what a waste. Well, he's not in the league anymore. He didn't make the team with Dallas, and he's in the G League, and people are like, this guy blows. Like, he's just really terrible. And you drafted him in a time where you needed to win now, and you picked this raw developmental player who sucks, can't even play in the league. You've given up Middleton. You've given up Drew Holiday. You gave up a lot to get Damian Lillard, and everyone thought you were a genius. And then you just, like you said, threw it in the garbage and kind of forgot about it. It just, I don't understand what's happening. And, we've tried to make excuses for it and say that maybe he's just being run by the owners, and that's very possible. But I don't know. Now I'm maybe starting to think maybe just is really bad at his job. There was something I saw, and of course, you can't believe anything you see on Twitter or X, but somebody, I heard that John Horst was quoted saying Doc Rivers has done a phenomenal job this year, or something along those lines.
Whoa.
And it was like, hold on, if that's true, I really don't know what to think anymore, because like, there's no way you could say that. Like you said, you're looking forward to the end of the year press conference to get his real thoughts on kind of what's happening, and we're expecting to say Doc is gone and we're resetting, and we're going to find a new identity for Milwaukee Bucks and stick with us type deal. But if he's actually saying that Doc Rivers has done a great job and is like drinking the Kool-Aid of Doc Rivers, who has 1,000 excuses for why everything is broken except him, yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's just kind of tied to it. I don't know. I'm really starting to think Horst we haven't had any draft picks that have even been good. Like, I mean, we had DiVincenzo, I think, was under him. Didn't really maximize his skill. I know he's kind of on his second or third team since being on our team, but like,
I mean, he's good now.
He's still
been
good.
The
Yeah,
past
exactly.
3 years he's been good, but he wasn't, when we traded him, it was fine. It made sense.
Right. Yeah. But looking back, it's one of those things like the guy that traded SGA to get Paul George. Nobody thought he was going to look like the stupidest person that ever lived. Nico Harris came in and beat that, but it was like, look back, you can't be the guy that made that trade. You're like, I don't know what I was doing. But I don't know. It could be like that.
Yeah.
Well, so
what do you got next?
Yeah, I'll go with my next one. This is kind of a cop-out, but injuries. I know it kind of sucks, but we've been dealing with some really bad injuries since the championship. Chris Middleton could not stay healthy. All of a sudden was being tagged in our own friend group as a fragile player. This guy's never healthy. Well, it's not really the case. It just really seemed like it. Like the guy could not stay healthy. And then Giannis is dealing with injuries. Dame is dealing with injuries. Like, it was just one thing after another. And I'm not getting any credit to Doc, but there is truth that, like, there's always somebody hurt. You just can't deal with it. And it's like, that is a significant thing. Going back to the beginning of the show where it's, what's going on with these injuries, like the Bucks cannot stay healthy. And if you're playing less and you're supposed to have better medicine and conditioning and training, this should not be happening. But we can't get through a season without some major piece on the team getting hurt. And, I don't think it's controllable, but that is a huge factor in kind of where things have kind of gone off the rails.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And to your point, it's the playoffs too, where we've had some of those injuries. Like, why haven't we made it back to the Eastern Conference Finals or to the finals? It's Giannis is hurt or Middleton's hurt, every one of those years, and Dame, and then Dame tears his Achilles, and it's just like, some, especially like the recent year, we were getting beat anyway, perhaps. So it's not a full excuse, but some of them for sure. I mean, the year after the championship, we didn't have Middleton, and we went 7 games against Boston. I think with Middleton, every Bucks fan thinks we would have gone back to the finals with Middleton that season. So that was a huge bummer. But yeah, then the next season we didn't have Giannis, and it's just one after another. So whether it's during the season and then into the playoffs, we're just not healthy. And other teams have the same deal with the same thing. But I mean, if you're missing if your best player is like a top 3 player and he's hurt, you're probably not going to go to the finals. I mean, that's like, it's kind of like, okay, that sucks. So yeah, definitely. All right. Well, one of my other ones was, you kind of touched on it. I'm going to say the 2024 NBA draft. We had 2 picks. We had 23 and 33. And this is, as you said, this is a time where we're really competing to get back to the finals, like win now situation. We have 2 pretty good picks, 1 first round, 1 early second round, that are, pretty decent assets, especially like in the year. Like you can trade them right now. You can have this pick to teams who want to kind of rebuild and pick a younger guy who they don't have to pay a lot. So very tradable assets to get if they want to make a trade. And I don't even know if they tried. I don't know, but that didn't happen. Okay, all right, fine. You're gonna pick players with him. All right. Well, it comes time to pick, and they pick AJ Johnson, a complete project. There's no chance he's playing that first year. It's just such a stupid decision. So stupid. It's like, it's stupid for the win now. Okay, you're thinking like it's like too galaxy brain. Like, oh, we're gonna pick this guy, and he's the next Giannis, and in 5 years, he's gonna be the best player in the league. I mean, if that works out, I guess great. I guess you just took Aaron Rodgers, or you just traded up to get Jordan Love, which isn't quite as good, but kind of worked out, I guess. But that's the kind of thing you did, and it's so risky, and it's just so stupid, and it completely didn't work out. Like AJ Johnson's in the G League. I guess he's still around, but maybe he'll be good. He's so right. It's only like a couple of years later, so I guess there's a chance for him. I mean, Ryan Rollins was, undrafted, cut, 2-way. So maybe AJ Johnson becomes good at some point. But if you're going to draft him and give up on him a year later, what are you thinking? I thought the whole point was he's a project. So it's just, so that just compounded the problem. Like now you're a complete idiot for drafting him because you didn't even follow the plan through. So that is just, at the time, was so stupid and just so upsetting. Like Ryan Dunn was a guy that people were calling for because he's like a top defender. The problem with Dunn is he sucks on offense and he couldn't shoot in college. But we needed defense, and he is starting on the Suns, playing great defense. I think he is an okay 3-point shooter. I guess I should check that. I don't know. He was for a time. Is he still? I don't know, but he does play. He plays for the Suns. He's a really good defender. He's the kind of guy I'd like on my team to go to be a role player on a team trying to make the finals with a Giannis on the team. It's just like, why did you not take that guy? Why didn't you take Terrence Shannon Jr., who out of Illinois, who's playing for the Timberwolves? I don't know. There's guys you could have taken that would make sense, even if they didn't work out. At least they made sense. At least they're like, here are guys we can plug in, and they can be role models this year. And you didn't even give yourself a shot. Then you gave up on it a year later, and it was just a complete waste. I didn't even mention 33 was Tyler Smith. Similar kind of guy, and also traded a year later, just totally gave up on him. So it's not like you're going to draft a guy who's going to make a huge difference. Like the odds of that are low is what I'm saying. But the guys you took, it just decreased your chances like all the more. It was just like, again, you're basically shooting the moon here. Like, can we get just crazy lucky miracle? And that's assuming you don't give up on him a year later. So just big mistake.
So that one really ties into my last one, so it's kind of a good transition. But, I touched on the draft, you touched on the draft, but just roster building during this time. You know, the way that the roster was, if you would have signed PJ Tucker and then focused the end of the bench to be a bunch of young project guys, you would have had maybe a 2-year window of kind of the same team. Let's keep running it back. Let's see what we're doing while these guys develop. They don't have to play a lot of minutes. And that never really happened. And it didn't happen until like this year. This year, you look at the Bucks, and if you're watching, there's a lot of guys that these guys might be somebody. You know, you started to see that with Rollins last year. That turned out to be a really good, decision to stick with him and see where he developed. AJ Green was one of the guys that, like, the year before, it was always like, he's about to make a leap. KPJ, you're seeing all these guys that it's like, well, now the Bucks all of a sudden, this young roster, well, now what are we going to do going into this next year? Because are you going to build all this talent of all these young players that have really good chances, and then they're going to blow it up for another chance with like some older players? This is what you should have been doing the whole time. You already had that veteran core. Should have been really developing those, like, maybe 3 or 4 guys at the end of the bench, and you'd be in a way better situation than you are. But they just wasted everything they did. I mean, none of these picks have been good. They just keep feeling like you kind of touched on, we'll just find another Giannis at some point. It's like, you got lucky once. I don't think you're going to do that every time.
This is, yeah, you totally nailed it here. And this is like, why are you signing guys like Gary Harris? Why are you signing guys like Taurean Prince? I guess you do need a couple of these guys. You need veteran leadership. You need guys who actually can play. And if you're trying to win. But at the end of the bench here, like especially a Gary Harris or like a Amir Coffey, okay, just who they gave up on because he sucks. It's just like, just take an undrafted guy. Like, just try these young guys. And if they're not working, you can try another different guy. You can like waive them, especially when you have the payroll they have now. Like, you have the ability to like waive guys and like pay them whatever, a couple $1 million. So for at least one of those spots, and that's why maybe like Thanasis. Like, I was thinking this today. I'm done with Thanasis. He's done. Okay, he is terrible. He's not an NBA player. And he shouldn't be on the bench. If maybe he can be a coach, why don't you just hire him as a coach? Why does he have to be a player? But we're getting to the point now where it's too valuable. The end of the bench is actually valuable. We need that to be young guys who are hopefully developing. And maybe they're not. Like Ajax, it seems like he's not. I mean, he hasn't really been given much of a shot, but at the same time, it just looks like he's not. But you bring in a two-way guy, Cormac Ryan. He looks pretty good. He looks like a guy who could maybe be a piece. He could be a role player guy. He definitely has a good shot. He definitely tries. He can dribble. He can go to the rim. It's not just like an AJ Green. Like, can't really do that. I mean, Cormac Ryan can actually do a little bit more. He seems to have a defensive edge to him. Like, he might be a guy. Like, how many guys are there like that? Like, there's so many guys trying to make the NBA, and it's just a matter of like who gets the opportunity. I mean, not just, but some of it is getting the opportunity. There's a number of guys who didn't ever make it who probably could have if they had the right opportunity. And so I think if we just give that opportunity, we have a 1 or 2 spots, like you're saying. We just have Amir Coffey, Gary Harris type of spots on the bench. That's like, why are you signing these guys? It just doesn't really make sense. And then Thanasis, it's like I think that spot's too valuable at this point. I want Pete Nance, I want Cormac Ryan, I still want Ajax, I want these young guys. Give them opportunities, see what they can become.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. It's these young guys do need to stay. The younger guys you're picking up aren't the veteran like leaders. I mean, Taurean Prince is a quiet guy. Gary Harris is a quiet guy. Like, I don't understand what you're doing. Like, I mean, it's just bench filler maybe, but like, I don't know. I mean,
PJ Tucker, that's who we want.
Yeah, exactly. It's but we're just in this like hangover. I don't want to call it the honeymoon, but the hangover from the championship. We're kind of letting the Atentacupo family just do whatever they want. Thanasis, have your talk show and be at the end of the bench and be silly and go buy clothes across. It's like, okay, hold on. Like, do that. Be a businessman. Be doing all these types of things. But yeah, like the show ends. Thanasis, like we really need to open that spot. It has to be something else. You can come and coach. We've been saying that for a long time. Like he should not be playing. He should be coaching. He gets out there and he acts like, the kid that his parents are watching him for the first time. So he's going to make a big impression in 30 seconds and ends up looking like an idiot. So it's time to move on. Like you can't do that. And you have to be able to sit down and have a real conversation with Giannis and say, look, are you here to win basketball or not? Because if you want this thing to work, we are going to build a roster and we are going to bring in a coach and we are going to change the way that this is played. And it's going to be basketball first. If you don't, and you want to be able to do this circus, fine. We'll bring Thanasis back and we'll do this whole song and dance. But, it's kind of the same thing with Bobby. Everybody loves Bobby Portis after the championship. He rides that thing until now where it's like, yeah, I mean, everybody still loves Bobby Portis. He's just, he's at the championship team and, he's still good, but he's not great. He didn't really step up to where we maybe thought he was going to go. He's now just like, yeah, it's Bobby Portis. It's great. Like, but he's not great. He's really good. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, like I'd be fine if he didn't come back. I'd be fine if Prince didn't come back and Thanasis and like all these people we've talked about before. It's time to move on and actually start getting focused on basketball again.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. Yeah. Well, my last one, which we touched on at some point, is that Middleton for Kuzma trade is the last biggest mistake. And it's understandable the Bucks had to do something because of the second apron and the luxury tax and blah, blah, blah. The stupid money for the owners. But it makes sense. Okay, you had to do something. But to get an essentially a negative asset and you had to give up your first round pick to do that, like it seemed like such a high price to pay. And we were just like, they had us by the balls and just like, you have to give me the first round pick and you have to give me AJ Johnson and Middleton and whatever else, the second round pick or whatever you gave him. And you're taking Kyle Kuzma and you're going to like it. And that's what we did. And it's like, apparently that's the best deal we could get for Chris Middleton, which it's just kind of hard to believe because he was so good. He was so good. And then he had the injuries, but he wasn't like terrible. I mean, he had a number of good games. He was slower. That's why we were on a basketball side of things saying like, we can't win with Middleton. He just can't keep up defensively, which is probably true, honestly. But he can still have some great games and he can make every single mid-range shot that he takes. And he's Chris Middleton and there's games where he's awesome. So, but to have, again, it's just a matter of like asset management and to have that asset who was a top 40, top 50 player, I don't know. And to get negative assets from him, to give up assets to get rid of him. It's just, it's just surprising that it had to be that way. Cause like you're saying, he's having actually really good games in Washington. He's having really good games in Dallas. He's like not a negative player. He's not a 30 million plus player. That's how much he was getting paid at that time. So it was a difficult spot. I can understand a lot of these moves you can understand. I can understand waiving Damian Lillard. It's a shot. It's like, everything we're doing is a risk here, and we're trying to win championships. So it's like I don't blame them. You got to do some crazy stuff, but it does seem like they really did like as poorly as they could have with trading Middleton. Like, apparently they should have traded him sooner. They should have traded him like a year ago, but that's hard to do. Or could they have kept him? I don't know the financials enough to say whether they could have done that. Did they have to give up AJ Johnson? That's just kind of crazy that was a part of that deal. And actually Kuzma's been better this year. I don't know if the Bucks can get anything from Kuzma. It would be really nice if they could get something from him, but it just doesn't seem like they'll be able to. So again, like they waived Damian Lillard and literally got nothing from him. And they traded Middleton and actually gave up a first round pick for him. And so like our assets that we have, we're getting negative or we're actually like losing more assets. And like that's not how you build a team for the future. And so that's why these are just big mistakes looking back.
Yeah. Again, can't agree more. It was the thing that you had to do, and it's weird enough because it seems kind of like when you look back at it that the only way Chris Middleton was going to take less money is on a different team. And like I hate to say that that's the truth, but like if we would have went to Chris Middleton and said, "Look, man, like be a Buck for life, but we'll pay you 20 million a year." Like
Yeah, couldn't they
yeah,
change it to be less this year, but then you were extending you
you
and we're
would have
paying you
thought that that would have been
more.
a possibility, but it seemed like there was no chance that that was going to happen, or he wasn't going to take it, or I don't know. It just
I don't
seems
know if you
odd.
see, I don't recall seeing those types of moves. I wonder if it's not possible, not
Maybe,
legal
yeah,
in basketball, because you'd think you'd see that sometimes, like a restructuring. In the NFL, I think it
yeah.
happens.
NFL restructures all the time, and maybe that's
Yeah,
the
I
problem. You
don't.
kind of assume that everybody does it, but I don't know. It just always felt very like you said, number one, he didn't like the trade because it was like, why did we have to give up so much? I don't understand that. Like, he wasn't some like cancer on our team, you know.
Yeah,
And then we kind of get the person that you thought was the cancer on your team. Like, what the hell's happening? And it turned out, you know, Kuzma's not a cancer. He's just not the guy we need. He's not a doesn't seem like a bad guy. He doesn't seem to be a bad locker room guy. It's just not the guy that we're looking for. But it's you look back on it, it's like I don't even know what the hell you were thinking. Like that's really a bad trade, and it kind of goes back to this realization I kind of am having tonight. John Horst just might be a really bad GM, and maybe that's part of the move to make. Is he goes, new guy comes in, fires Doc, and we just reset and start over. Maybe that's kind of the point we're at. I don't know. And by the way, when I say start over, it means still sign Giannis. I don't want to start over without him. Something like that's got to give.
yeah, yeah. That you make valid points about Horst. I mean, I am a Horst fan, generally speaking, but some of these mistakes are pretty big mistakes, and it's on him. And it's kind of like we give him credit for trying, but they don't work. And so, should that come into play? Like, well, hey, nice try, but you did bad, and you're
Yeah,
fired.
yeah,
Um,
if you worked with a guy that had like the greatest ideas, but they never materialized, and he was not good at his job, you'd be sitting there being like, "How is this guy still here?" Like, we all get excited when he talks, but then it just dies, and nobody's talking about it. Like, what's going on here?
I mean, that's a good point. Yeah. Because we all look back and it seems like it should have worked. Giannis and Dame, everyone talked about this is perfect. Zach Lowe is going off about how it's just going to be incredible pick and roll between the two of them. Everyone thought that, and it just never quite worked. And then a lot of injuries as well. And so it just like you thought, well, we need time, and then they get hurt, and then it just never happened. And so is that how much do you blame Horst for that? Is it like that was a bad move, or is it like, hey, it didn't work. Like you fucked up. Sorry,
What do
sounded
you?
good, but no.
Yeah, what do you think the best thing Horst ever did was with the?
The best thing he ever did. He has hit on. I mean, he's been really good with the two-way guys. I'd say like that's pretty impressive. I don't know how many two-way guys are successful in the NBA, but so that's been good. Did he pick Brogdon?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I guess we'd have to look back.
Yeah,
He made, I mean, he's made some of these like the PJ Tucker acquisition mid-season was very good. Uh,
but you know the thing is,
I'd have
I don't
to.
think he's made enough to continue to overshadow the bad decisions that are kind of more glaring at this point. Like it's not like he is the guy that drafted Giannis, and it's not like he's the guy that pulled off the trade to get Chris Middleton when he was kind of like doing nothing in Detroit. Like those are things that you could be like, yeah, like let's just give him some credit because he did those things, and maybe he'll just turn it around.
Yeah,
And
he's good at the little moves, I guess. I mean, he got KPJ from Beauchamp. Like that's actually like that's not becoming a finals team, you know, but it's like that in itself is such an upgrade, I guess. He got Amir Coffey became Jang. So now we have a guy who it's like, let's see what he becomes. You know, it's like, so little moves he's been really good at, and big moves it has been mostly misses, I guess. Hit or well, he did trade. I don't know how far back Horst goes, but you know, Bledsoe for Holiday, right?
Yeah,
was that?
I think
it was Bledsoe to Holiday. I mean, that was great.
Yeah,
everyone knew Bledsoe needed to go. Holiday was perfect, obviously amazing and perfect. So that was great. I think he did that. So he has made some good moves. He has not made good first round picks. He's definitely failed at that arena, which scares me about this upcoming draft. Like, oh my gosh, we're going to draft some AJ Johnson type guy who's like, I don't know what's going to happen. But so that's a little scary. So yeah, maybe we fire him just for that. Let's just get a new GM to make the pick.
Yeah, whoever's scouting the G League, give him the job.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, did we get through your 5?
We did. We got through mine.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we had a couple of few repeats there, but pretty good rundown. And yeah, I mean, some of the things we talked about, I mean, huge things, really big things here. And and like we said, some of them didn't even sound bad. They were actually good ideas, and it's just, you know, didn't work. So a combination of bad luck with some bad moves, and it's just hasn't worked out at all. But maybe they can turn it around. Maybe the Sixers turned it around big time. The Suns turned it around big time. It's very possible to be a fun, competitive team next year.
Yeah, you get a new coach. You hit on your pick. You kind of fill out the roster a little bit better. I mean, there's possibilities with this. I still think there is something to having these young shooters with Giannis, but you need to add some defensive pieces and, you know, some other things around here. But there's a good chance that they can kind of come back. I mean, I think the days are gone of us being a top 3 seed, but we should be able to be in the playoffs next year if we kind of do the right things. I don't think that requires that much.
Yeah, if Giannis resigns, I mean, that's always the expectation. Obviously, I mean, it obviously should be. Yeah, and you got a good piece. You got Ryan Rollins. You got some guys. You got Miles Turner. It's like, it's not like you have nothing on your team. So it's a matter of putting it together. The new coach is definitely the big main piece here. So we can come back in, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 weeks at some point. We'll probably come back, maybe do a pre-draft, look to next season type of thing. We kind of talked about this past season a lot today, so I'm not sure if we'll do that again. But season's about over. So next time we're together, the season will be over. This nightmare will be behind us, and it'll be all optimism. So yeah, subscribe and rate us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Email us at doubledroublebucks@gmail.com. Follow us on X at PodDDB. Until then, go Bucks.